I too learned selfishness from men. They really know how to put themselves first. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Me too. I continue to learn selfishness from men. And I mean the best kinds of selfishness. I actually wrote about this for Glamour magazine back in 2019. Sex, yes. Sleepover, no thanks. And this whole story is about me realizing that I could just do what men do in terms of like, what do I need? What do I want? Well, I never asked that question before. It was more like, what does he want? What's he going to think? And it doesn't mean I can't be selfish in doing that, because usually that was rooted in approval seeking and please like me and all that crap, right? And then also under patriarchy, we learned to do this to like not die at the hands of men, smile and blah, blah, blah. But like one of my favorite things that I learned to do was just be as selfish as men in all the best way, because I had to counteract all of the like self-abandonment and all the crap that I've been taught to do my whole life, which ends up leaving me a bitter, resentful, victim-obsessed, feeling like a victim, a martyr, and all that crap. Bitch! And that doesn't really help anybody. It takes years off of my life. It makes me never know who I am. I want to share a story that I told in this article. It's really hard for me to go back and read my old articles because I'm like, I don't even know that person anymore, even though I'm very proud of, all I'm not ashamed of anything I wrote, but I've learned a lot since every article I've ever written. I'm like, I would definitely write that differently now. But even this person, right? That was 6 years ago. I'm so proud of her for realizing this then. Before I get into that, I do want to show this one response. And I get why they wrote this, but they're wrong. As a man who's coached, managed, and counseled other men, I'd tell you to be careful with that. Selfishness is one of the core reasons a lot of men are extremely lonely, depressed, and in case behind closed doors. His point, it's a valid point, but that doesn't, don't take that advice. Because, oh my God, what is this? Sorry, I was like, fuck, okay. Little feather. It takes so much time to you don't worry about overcorrecting at this point. Sometimes we can go a little extreme, but we're so far over here that we're not going to end up like that usually. Okay, so don't before you tell us right? Because men and women are socialized differently. Women are socialized to take care of everyone, to be caretakers, to do all this stuff, and not even bother to ask, what do I truly need? What do I want? That is not how we were socialized. We were literally socialized to hold up everyone else, take care of everybody else, right? Especially men. To just be asking, what do I want? What do I need? Maybe I should come first. Maybe I should feel entitled to pleasure when I engage in one of the most intimate things that you can do with a human being. Maybe I should get something out of this. I was 36 when I got my first O. I did not realize that was a right, damn it. I'm not entitled to someone else's body, but if we're going to engage in something together that's consensual, I am just as entitled to pleasure as you. And I never thought of it that way. I was just like, whatever. I didn't believe that it was possible for me. And then I thought there was something wrong with me. So I want to tell you the story of that I wrote about in that article, which is the moment. I mean, it'd been a long time coming. I just noticed from men that I had met through all of my hookups, because I had a little Tinder bender that was life-changing for me. I don't suggest it for everyone. It can be very dangerous, blah, 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 but no more dangerous. I'd even argue less dangerous than dating men, because, you don't have your emotions tied. You're just, and what I realized was that, I had an amazing vetting system. And so after a while, I got really good at vetting dudes. Now, there's always risk. But some of the questions I would ask them, I would really trigger men immediately with my questions. And I was like, oh, phew, wow, I'm glad I asked that, because now I know you're terrifying. But one of the first things I would ask them, and knowing that I only wanted to hook up, right, is that, are you gonna eat this? Are you gonna eat this? Yeah, if you go down on me first. Nope. No, never mind. Sorry. So I'd ask about a question like this, right? So if they didn't want anything to do with this, then first of all, I'm like, I am literally just a hole or multiple holes, right? Because if you won't even like, you know what, I get it. Maybe you don't want to like put your mouth there, but if you are not going to take care of her somehow, right? You don't care. Fork off, right? And so I just remember so many times when I would had all these like pretty great hookups, I didn't have the default to assume that I could do fill in the blank until I saw it role modeled for me by men who seemed pretty cool. You know, they seemed emotionally intelligent. They had cared about my pleasure. They had been respectful. We'd had great conversations, all that stuff. But it's just a hookup, right? Like, whatever, you're passing through town, I'll never see you again. Great, that was fun. Bye. And I just remember there was one moment where all the things that I'd seen that I was like, made sense. And this was here in Lyon, my first year here. I was having a wild tender bender. I mean, all these French dudes. And all the ones I hooked up with, they loved eating this, you know, and they're sensual and blah, blah, blah. But this guy was actually a Belgian guy who was passing through. And we went out, we had a good time, we hooked up, he was at my place. And then, we were like, hooked up, and then we're hanging, we're like cuddling, and he's caressing me. And then he said, just, by the way, I'm probably not going to stay tonight because I have to, I'm leaving early tomorrow morning, and I don't really sleep well in someone else's bed. I just want to go back to my hostel. He was a younger guy, like late 20s or whatever. And he's like me. He's a traveler, cheap traveler, right? And he said, it's just down the road, but I just wanted you to know, it's nothing personal. And I remember being like, well, goddamn. Because there's a slight part of me, it was like, oh, he doesn't want to stay with me. I don't want him staying. Like, I love the idea. Have you been cuddled all night by a dude? I know that if you went 12 years of abstinence like I did, it wasn't all back to back, but it was 12 full years in my adult years of abstinence, then you dream about what you see in movies and TV shows of like cuddling all night. I don't want that, especially once you're in perimenopause and beyond. You don't want a body keeping you hot. You don't want like a hairy, giant man, like leave me alone. I want my pillows at each side. I want to be sleeping on a cloud. I don't want an elbow in my ribs in the middle of the night. I don't want all these men with sleep apnea keeping me up all night because they won't go to the freaking doctor. God forbid they wear the mask so that they don't die 10 years earlier and torture their partners with sleep apnea. But anyway, I did not realize. And so this guy did what I would hope men would do. So many men that I'd hooked up before never put it so well and so thoughtfully, but they had just been like, all right, we'd hung out, had a good time. And they were like, look, I got to go. I got to work in the morning. And I remember being instead of feeling hurt this time, like I had the other times, I was jealous. I wasn't hurt. I had no reason to be hurt. This guy was very clear. It's not about me. He had really valid reasons for not staying over. Like, it all made sense. And honestly, if I ask myself, I didn't want him staying over because I'm not going to sleep well with this dude in my bed, especially if he snores, and especially, like, it's a very intimate thing. You can come inside my vagina, but coming in my bed, staying in my bed all night, that's way more intimate to me, okay? And when I realized I'm jealous, that is when it all made sense. That I can learn so much from men, not selfish prick men, but men who think the way of constantly being like, what do I want? What do I need? How do I, how is this going to impact me? And they also have done the hard work of learning from women how to be, maybe not all women, but how we're socialized is to be thoughtful, community oriented in terms of like the impact on community. Like, we think way too much about what the impact and what everyone else is going to think of them. We don't even know who we are. We're men, it's like our socialized with the opposite, and we can learn from each other. And I continue to learn a healthy men in my life, how to not self-abandon. One of the reasons why I do actually learn a lot from men, And again, I'm never role modeling after like super selfish, toxically masculine men. But the men in my life who are very emotionally intelligent, who are really great communicators, who are really thoughtful in how they communicate, who are community minded, and all the things that I love, like who have the same aspects of the women in my life that I admire and you know, who inspire me, right? What for those men, it is not something that they had to work so hard to learn. Whereas most of the women in my life, maybe not my BFF, somehow she seems to have been great at this right out of the gate. And I love that. And I do have some women in my life who seem to have been like so far ahead in the like, what do I want? Like, what do I need? How do I communicate? Like, I'm going to like, and it's selfishness isn't even the right word. It's like not self-abandoning while also being community minded, right? So I do know some women who have been doing that for so long and they're so good at it. And like literally my best friend Liz taught me this. I was so the opposite of this when we met, and I learned so much from her. And then I started meeting men who were like that. And they also had the parts of community minded, thoughtfulness, you know, emotional intelligence and all that stuff. I cannot tell you how much I learned from these people, right? Whatever gender, right? Some are trans people, some are non-binary, some are, you know, cishet men or women, but it's more about how they move through the world, right? And that like, if the default is to not self-abandon, and also the default isn't to be unbelievably egotistical and selfish, then I can learn from them, right? And so my default was always self-abandon, which can end up causing so much harm, not just to me, but literally I used to be so confusing. It used to be so hard for people to understand what the fuck I want, because I'd just be like passive aggressive or, you know, just beat around the bush, you know, and just not like had a hard time asking for what I needed. And so I'd say nothing, and then I'd suffer, and then they would suffer from me suffering, but through either just like silence or just like, I can imagine. Once I started to understand how hard it was for other people to deal with me because of my fear of people, I started to take more chances, right? And so some of my guy friends and bosses that I've had, oh my God, one of my bosses in the film industry, you know, he was one of the best bosses I've ever had. And, you know, when I was doing props, you know, and I first started working with him, he was like, he stopped me one day, he goes, do not run. And I was like, oh yeah, it's unsafe. He goes, no, I mean that. Do not run. Do not let these people convince you that you're in trouble because you're doing your job. Do not run, because they will expect you to run from then on. You walk confidently across this set with the props. Do not let them force a sense of urgency on you, because then you're going to get sloppy and not be as good at your job. Do not give them that power over you. And I was like, well, damn. And I noticed that you know, like he confidently took his freaking time. Now he got shit done, but he did not let these forkers who, you know, the film industry is full of some of the biggest bullies on the planet, egomaniacal, crazy people. And he never, ever, you know, even if they were getting to him, he never let them see they were getting to him. He kept his calm and he walked across that set. Here you go. He never let them see him sweat, you know? And I was like, dang, he's like, he knows what he needs and he knows what he wants. He will not let these people force him to do his job faster than he should for some urgency when the camera department, and he pointed this out to me, he goes, watch how they treat the camera department. They don't understand what the camera department does. That camera department and the lights and the gaffers, the lights, the electrics, nobody understands what they're doing. So people just accept that it takes time and you cannot rush them. But it's different with props. They think we're their little bitch because they're like, where's the freaking whatever? Because they're just like, whatever, it's just a watch. Whatever, it's just food. Just make the eggs. And it's like, meanwhile, I'm shuffling like 8 different cigarettes that are lit different because Keira Knightley's character is smoking during the scene because the director just had to have that. Which means my job is a lot harder and is going to take longer because of that creative choice. So this man Oh, he taught me to not self-abandon at work just because they want me to go fast. Same thing with Anthony. The way he can be so thoughtful, but his default is to not self-abandon. So sometimes he does. Oh, look at Mose. I just heard him go in his car. Oh, look at you in your car. Hi, I see, baby. Like, he knows how to compromise. He knows how to do things he doesn't necessarily want to do sometimes because it's best for us or best for whatever or best for you. I mean, like, whatever. We all have to do things we don't want to do sometimes because that's like adulting. I don't want to go to the doctor, right? But when he does compromise, he always like, he doesn't just self-abandon. He'll just be like, okay, that makes sense. You know, I'm frustrated with this. Like, he just talks about how he feels. And he explains things, and any time he does not self-abandon for codependent reasons the way I so often used to. And like, now I don't, that's not my default, but it's still like, it's still hard to fight it sometimes. You know, this is years and years and years of conditioning and years of like family dynamics and learning that and watching that. And also the collective conditioning for women to just self-abandon for this, and this reason, right? And the way that he can just have such an open heart, but like a strong spine. And I'm just like, and even like let himself be mad. He understands the power of his anger. He understands that like him getting mad is different than me getting mad. Like, I try my hardest to not make it so that he is not allowed to be mad in our house because that's dehumanizing. But he also is painfully aware that men's violence, that most women, if not all women, but most women have trauma around men's anger and their violence or the threat of violence, that he is aware of his feelings and how they may come across. So he has learned to not police them, but like emotionally regulate, right? Whereas I am so far on the opposite extreme where I didn't even know I was mad. He's literally pulled it out of me. He was like, "You're mad. What is it? I can handle it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I am mad." All right. And so just the way he communicates what he needs, how he's feeling, all this stuff, I'm like, oh, yeah, it just like Liz, right? But, you know, like Liz and I are the best friends, but, you know, I wasn't married to Liz. I didn't live in the same home with her. I mean, for a little while, we like lived, but we also lived in trucks next to each other. We only lived in a house together for a very short period of time. So, you know, you see stuff more when you live with someone. So also I can think of some of my guy friends. And honestly, it's a lot of times it's men in the rainbow community who've also taught me this. Because again, one of the things it's like, I think I was so afraid to act like men because my example was the opposite, where it was so selfish and so violent. I didn't ever want to be like men until I started seeing emotionally mature, emotionally intelligent, thoughtful, community-minded men who had also been conditioned under patriarchy to be unbelievably selfish as their default and individualistic, right? That I was like, okay, so there is a way to be do self-care and not self-abandon, and also be community-oriented and community-minded and thoughtful and aware of your impact, right? Now, one last thing, the same thing could be said about race, right? And I know white women sometimes are like, God, you bring this all the time. But, you know, whoever the person in power is, the group in power always gets to be so selfish, right? And everyone has to default to them and when they don't want to in order to not die or in order to just survive these systems, right? And so while I didn't know how to be selfish with men or male-centered women who are like, you know, kind of bullies, whatever, I've also had to see how with whiteness, selfishness is the default. It's all about me, my feelings, what I want. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I'm having to unlearn it in this one area and learn it in this other area, this selfishness or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. And I share way more about my personal life and personal stories over on Patreon. I don't really talk about my personal life or my relationships much on these apps anymore. I've just become more private, especially since people on the internet really scare me when the way they talk about me or my life. But over on Patreon, I share personal stories, family, relationships, travel stories, all kinds of stuff, lives, and watch parties. And I have a live coming up on Thursday, September 11th. And we're talking about turning pain into creativity and how that like launched my career. And I'm going to be interviewing one of my mutuals, Ansa. So anyway, let me know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification buttons, all the things. And let me know if you heard that comment song. Welcome to the comment song medieval festival edition. This is the stuff I showed on Patreon. Me gonna do all of these medieval things and other stuff. Also, I did this video over there. This was like the least impressive medieval festival I've been to yet. Hey! Comment song, comment song. Here comes some old people dancing in a minute. This was like just a random medieval fair, and there was 2 weekends in a row they had this, and they're all over France during September and October and some in August also. Here's a little piece of the fair that I thought was so cute. All these local people meeting up and dressing in costumes. Look at these old ladies. Look at the support from everybody around. There's a 10-minute video on Patreon of all this cute stuff over there, along with other stuff, personal lives, watch parties, personal stories, and meetups.